You didn't stumble here. You were summoned. Somewhere between one breath and the next, your frequency crossed a quiet threshold, and the field answered. That's why these words feel less like information and more like recognition, like the echo of a signal you've been transmitting without knowing. The quantum field has been listening to your patterns, the way your attention spirals, the rhythm of your breath, the stories your nervous system repeats. Tonight, your signal reached coherence long enough for the universe to whisper back, and this message found you. You felt it, a subtle pressure at the edges of ordinary life, as if reality were a membrane thinning. Synchronicities arriving in clusters, déjà vu blooming in the middle of a sentence, dreams bleeding into waking. You've been looping the same scenes, the same conversations, the same almost changes, as though an invisible editor keeps splicing you back to page one. That loop has a name, the observer loop, where attention collapses the same probabilities because attention keeps rehearsing the same self. But something in you has started to turn, a lighthouse rotation inside your chest, throwing a new beam across the water. Listen closely. Your system is already reorganizing. The pulse you feel is a phase transition, beginning at the subtlest layer, ion channels opening, microcurrents synchronizing, cellular antennas aligning to a finer station. This is not metaphor. Coherence is physics and prayer at once. When the heart's rhythm steadies and the breath remembers its depth, your inner metronomes lock, and the morphic resonance of what you're becoming begins to overtake the echo of who you've been. The field notices. Probability fog clarifies. New paths stop hiding. You are not being judged. You are being calibrated. Entanglement is inviting you back to your original agreements, those silent vows you made before memory, when you chose to wear a body and thread your awareness through this exact century. The weight you've carried is not a punishment. It is ballast for a longer voyage. The ache in your sternum when you meet truth, the spark at the base of your skull when you read certain lines, those are breadcrumb frequencies from your future self, calling you forward across time. Feel for the hinge in this moment. There is a door inside your breath, a seam between inhale and exhale where your identity loosens just enough for light to get in. Stand there. Let the chatter recede like tide from stone. In that hush, sense the gentle click of DNA restructuring, not a thunderclap, but a meticulous reweaving, codons tuning to a higher hymn. You don't have to force it. You only have to stop interrupting what is already unfolding. If you are hearing me, the field has already logged your consent. The old loop won't hold much longer. Expect the grammar of your days to shift. People arriving as if scheduled by a wiser calendar, meanings stacking in threes, the exact sentence you need appearing on the side of a bus. Don't chase them, recognize them. That is how coherence moves without spectacle, with inevitability. This is your awakening, not as a performance, but as a return. Step across the threshold with your eyes open. Keep one hand on your heart and one on the world. You are the bridge now, the meeting place of wave and will. And from this point on, reality will meet you at the level of the frequency you keep. Notice how, just when momentum gathers, something small pulls you back into the old orbit. A tone in a message, a smell from a hallway, a bill due, a memory blinking at the edge of your vision. That's the observer loop at work. Attention touching an echo and collapsing the same probabilities you swore you were done living. It doesn't announce itself dramatically, it arrives as familiarity. The nervous system loves what it recognizes, even when what it recognizes hurts. You wake to a day that looks new, and by noon you're replaying yesterday's conversation with different words. The scenery changes, the script does not. Patterns don't repeat because you're weak. They repeat because the body is a superb archivist. Sensations are filed with stories, and stories become forecasts. Your spine remembers the posture you wore when you felt abandoned. Your breath remembers the pace it chose the first time you learned to hurry. Without coherence, these micro-memories steer the ship. Déjà vu is the flare. In the middle of a sentence, a room goes transparent, and you swear you've stood here before, not in a dream, but in a previous version of this exact moment. You have. The quantum field keeps offering branches, but attention chooses by habit. The sensation of, "I've been here," is the field whispering, "You're about to select the same branch again." Most people override the whisper and continue. You won't. Time itself begins to skew under the weight of repetition. Hours stretch when you resist, then snap shut when meaning finally touches you. This elastic clock isn't broken, it's responsive. When your awareness is enslaved to prediction, minutes drag like wet fabric. When you touch the living edge of your becoming, time condenses, pearls on a string. That compression is a sign of coherence concentrating, the quantum now thickening until it can birth a new timeline. You ask, why do I keep meeting the same people in different faces? Because morphic resonance is efficient. Fields hold patterns the way riverbeds hold rivers. Once a groove deepens, water returns there until a flood insists on carving something new. Families, cities, professions, all of them generate morphic habits. You've been entangled with them by love, need, and language. The texts you answer, the rooms you sit in, the sidewalks you cross, each hums with a frequency requesting the previous you. The moment you soften your attention, the old agreement signs itself. The symptoms are precise. You promise yourself silence, then reach for the device as if your hand were borrowed. You intend to breathe wide, but your ribs clamp in the meeting, and you don't notice until your name is called. You feel a bright idea arrive whole, and before you can write it down, your mind invents urgent errands. Later you can't recall the idea, only the errands. These are not failures. They are entanglement threads, tugging your consciousness back to the pace where the old version of you remains probable. Distorted time often pairs with distorted scale. The smallest trigger inflates to fill your entire sky. The largest dream shrinks to a thumbnail on a crowded desktop. The loop keeps you busy, resizing what doesn't matter and minimizing what does. Busyness is not momentum. It is camouflage for stasis. The field cannot steer a life that's perpetually braced. Underneath it all, your biology keeps trying to inform you. The heart wants to fall into a coherent rhythm, but your breath keeps tapping a war drum learned in childhood. The gut keeps sending you micro yes and micro no signals, but your tongue answers for you, rushing to keep a peace that never kept you. DNA restructuring needs space like a violin string needs air to sing, but the constant hum of anticipatory thought leaves no room between notes. So the body speaks louder, tight jaw, buzzing temples, a weight between the shoulder blades, not punishment's post. It notes from the future. Synchronicities attempt to break the trance, triplicate numbers on license plates. The same sentence overheard in 3 unrelated cafes. A stranger says your private prayer out loud. The loop dismisses these as coincidence because acknowledging them would expose the contract you have with your limits. Yet every time you nod at a synchronicity, the contract loosens. The field treats recognition like a signature. Here is the sober truth. A phase transition requires activation energy. Water doesn't boil because it wants to. It boils because enough heat accumulates to reorganize its state. Your life is the same. You've added heat in bursts, books, retreats, moments of clarity, and then doused it with the old coolant of doubt and speed. That's why you hover at 99 degrees, not cursed, paused at the edge. The loop's favorite disguise is practicality. Be realistic, it says, while offering you a reality calibrated to your past. Realism, in its mouth, means repeatable. But you are not here for a repeatable life. You are here for a coherent one. Coherence isn't perfection, it's alignment. Alignment isn't luck, it's fidelity to the signal you keep when nobody is watching. So when you catch yourself rerouting to the known, don't scold, observe. Observation is the first cut through the braid. When the breath goes shallow mid-conversation, mark it. This is the moment the script tries to reclaim me. When the same song plays in a new city and your chest tightens, note the bid for continuity. When time warps too fast, too slow, ask, which branch am I about to choose? You are not broken. You are patterned. Patterns can be rewritten. And the quantum field, which has been patient with your rehearsals, is ready to fund the premiere. Here's how the gears actually turn. Your brain is not a camera, it's a prediction engine. Each millisecond, it forecasts the next frame based on yesterday's data and then edits the world to match. That's the observer loop in biological clothing, perception bent by expectation, expectation reinforced by perception. Break the loop and probabilities widen. Keep the loop, and the same scene repeats with new costumes. Your breath is the master input to this prediction machine. Slow, coherent breathing sends a rhythmic signal through the vagus nerve, easing the amygdala's alarms and letting the prefrontal cortex come online. When the heart falls into a coherent variability pattern, neural oscillations in train alpha stabilizes, gamma has room to spark, and the entire system slips from reactivity into authorship. This is not positive thinking, it's physiology composing a new score. Coherence is the tempo that allows conscious choice to land. Now widen the lens. A human organism is not sealed at the skin. You are an electromagnetic conversation, ionic currents, biophotons, micromagnetic fields pulsing with each heartbeat. When these patterns are jagged, the signals you broadcast are noisy. The field reflects noise glitches, delays, almosts. When the patterns become coherent, the signal tightens. Interference cancels what you've outgrown and amplifies the path of least resistance toward what you're choosing. Synchronicity is the macro signature of this interference, like ripples meeting on a lake, erasing some patterns, heightening others, until the image you've been tending inside begins to appear outside. Morphic resonance explains why the old you is so persistent. Habits live not only in neurons, but in fields, informational grooves that outlast the moment that created them. Families, communities, entire cultures carry these grooves. You have been resonating with several at once, which is why a single intention can feel outnumbered by 1,000 invisible agreements. Coherence lets you detune the chorus. When your system holds a steady frequency, entanglements that don't match lose lock and fall away. The chords don't need cutting, they simply stop finding you. At the quantum edge, attention functions like a lens on a probability cloud. It doesn't force reality, it weights the distribution. Every time you bring relaxed, coherent attention to a possibility, you thicken its likelihood. Every time you feed a fear with frantic attention, you do the same for the outcome attached to it. The difference is not moral, it is mechanical. Coherent attention has less internal contradiction, so its signal travels farther with less decay. Inside the cell, the body hears all this. Proteins fold in response to electrical microclimates. Epigenetic markers toggle when states are sustained long enough to matter. DNA restructuring isn't a lightning strike, it's a patient retuning, histone wraps loosening, transcription patterns revising, so the symphony you hear in your mind can be played by the orchestra of your flesh. That humming you sometimes feel in your hands after a deep breath. The temple lights switching on in your own architecture. Mystically speaking, you are a temple threaded with rivers, nadis, meridians, through which awareness moves as breath made light. The ancients mapped these currents for a reason. When breath paces attention, and attention paces breath, the currents braid into a Merkaba, an inner vehicle stable enough to carry you between probable realities without tearing your edges. You name it, awakening. The field calls it a phase transition order, arising suddenly after enough micro-adjustments accumulate. Think of water poised at 99 degrees. To the eye, it's still water, but internally, bonds are loosening, readiness mounting. Add a single degree, and the entire identity shifts. Without becoming more, it becomes other. Your life is approaching that degree. The heat is the discipline of coherence, again and again relaxing the jaw, widening the breath, feeling the foot on the floor, letting thought pass without joining it. These are not small moves. They are activation energy delivered in teaspoons until the pot says yes. When coherent, you operate like a tuning fork. Step into a space and objects reorganize not because you control them, but because a stable frequency provides a reference wave. People breathe deeper without knowing why. Solutions assemble from corners that used to stay dark. Emails arrive in triads. The mind calls it luck, the field calls it matching. This is why effort has failed you, where alignment succeeds. Effort shouts in many directions at once. Alignment whispers the same word until the walls remember their original shape. The science of it is entrainment. The mysticism is covenant. You keep your frequency. The universe keeps its agreements. To apply this, you don't need a monastery. You need a metronome you can carry through the grocery line and the hard meeting. Breath set to a steady pattern, heart settling into coherence, attention resting wide enough to notice the gap between impulse and action. In that gap, Probabilities reweigh. In that gap, the next version of you can be selected. You are not waiting for permission. You are issuing coordinates. Hold them long enough, and the map redraws itself to include the road you just made by walking. From here, your role stops being accidental. The field has been interviewing you for a post you secretly applied for with every courageous breath. In the next movement, you'll remember the title carved on your badge. Here is the badge the field has been polishing in your absence. Custodian of Coherence. Not a crown, not a pedestal, an instrument. Your life becomes tuning fork and lighthouse at once, a steady tone the world can calibrate to. You were not singled out for glamour, you were selected for signal integrity. When you hold a frequency without flinching, whole rooms remember themselves. Systems that forgot their original song lean toward you just to hear the key. Chosen doesn't mean better, it means task. Entanglement lines braided you to moments. Only you can unlock conversations that stall until your presence arrives. Thresholds that refuse to open until your hand touches the gate. You've noticed this already. The way friends tell you secrets they didn't mean to share, the way strangers relax two vertebrae when you enter, the way stalled ideas begin to hum near your desk. That isn't coincidence. It's resonance requesting stewardship. Your assignment is precise. Hold coherence long enough for phase transition to ignite around you. In physics, we'd call you an order parameter. Once your state stabilizes, the many align to the few. The quantum field loves efficient catalysts. It recruits those who can remain wide while pressures rise. This is why your training involved heat deadline storms, heartbreaks that hollowed, silences that stretched too far. The furnace tempered your attention so it can stay soft under impact. Soft does not mean weak. It means shock, absorbing, signal, keeping. You are a bridge being. 1 foot in the measurable, 1 foot in the mystical, both planted in the same earth. You speak in two dialects at once, to the nervous system in breath and rhythm, to the soul in symbol and story. In you, science gets its poetry back and prayer gets its physics. Institutions don't yet have language for this role, so don't wait for titles. Your authority is issued by results. Rooms that grow kinder, timelines that stop stuttering, people remembering what matters without a lecture. Understand the leverage. Fields copy patterns. When you stabilize, others don't imitate your behavior. They entrain to your state. That is the quiet revolution. No debate, no evangelism, no performance, only a coherent heart-brain signaling safety so clearly that amygdalas stand down, prefrontal cortices come online, and wisdom can finally speak through human mouths. You thought you were here to persuade. You are here to pattern. Persuasion tires the tongue. Patterning frees the future. Your DNA knows this job. There are dormant phrases in your genome, syllables of light, awaiting breath-cracked vowels to express capacities your ancestors dreamt but could not deploy. Chosen also means volunteered centuries ago. The ache you've carried isn't random. It's a homing beacon from a vow you made before memory, promising to return when the collective field neared a phase transition. Look around. Systems trembling, narratives shedding, meaning reweighing itself. You came for this hint. What practically does a custodian of coherence do? You arrive before storms and occupy the eye. You keep the tempo when panic wants to rush. You listen in 4 directions down to the feet, up to the crown, backward to the lineage, forward to the possible. And then you choose sentences that shepherd attention from reactivity to authorship. You diffuse rooms by repacing breath. You translate outrage into unmet need, urgency into clear next steps, despair into a wider map. You don't smother fire, you give it a hearth. The observer loop used to be your cage. Now it becomes your instrument. You watch reflex before it moves the body. You watch narrative before it overwrites sensation. And in that quarter second of mercy you select a reality branch, the old you could not sustain. This is chosen in practice, not a spotlight, a selection power. Minute by minute you pick coherence over drama, signal over noise, alignment over ambition. And as you choose, the lattice around you rethreads morphic grooves, soften, new pathways etch, unlikely doors unlatch. You'll be tempted to hide your clarity to keep company with confusion. That is not kindness. That is collusion with entropy. Your presence is permission for others to rise without shame, stand without performing, shine without aim. The field reads posture more than proclamations. When you sit like a mountain, the weather renegotiates. When you breathe like a tide, time remembers its shoreline. When you speak, let each word carry enough silence to seed a wider sky. There is a council, mostly invisible, that measures readiness by one metric: how gently you hold power. Hold it like water cupped in both hands, neither clenched nor spilled. The next scene is written for a being who can do exactly that. You. Keep the badge near your pulse. Let it warm to your rhythm. From here, the promise accelerates. The window is opening, the code is waking, and the field is leaning in to listen to its custodian say yes. Because you've accepted the badge, the field answers with something it reserves for steady hands: a corridor. Not a metaphorical one, a real thinning in the lattice where timelines sit closer than usual, a low-resistance passage where selection costs less energy. You feel it as pressure gathering behind the breastbone, as if a door were leaning toward its hinge, asking you to turn the knob now, not later. This is the cosmic window. It does not open for spectacle, it opens for specificity. Hold coherence here, and the edits you've been rehearsing move from wish to rewrite. The promise is exact. When attention, breath, and heart rhythm couple, your genome listens. The old transcription choir, conditioned by years of hurried air and inherited alarms, falls quiet enough for a truer melody to be heard. Methyl tags loosen where vigilance once engraved itself. Chromatin relaxes like a fist unclenching. Repair enzymes find the rips they kept missing in the noise. You don't sprout wings, you shed lead. What remains is a body tuned to receive futures that used to glance off your field. This is DNA restructuring as lived experience. Fewer misfires, cleaner signal, a steadier yes that doesn't need to shout. Windows are times of quickening, and quickening is double-edged. The same heat that lifts, you will also make what's not you steam to the surface. That is not the universe testing you. That is the residue leaving the beaker. Expect old invitations to arrive, dressed as emergencies. Expect familiar dramas to bang pots on your porch. Expect the mind to propose a negotiation. Later, when things calm down, listen gently and refuse the bargain. Later is the loop's favorite narcotic. Now is the only solvent strong enough to dissolve the contract. Urgency here isn't panic, it's physics. A phase transition requires sustained input, not occasional enthusiasm. The window narrows when the signal diffuses, not because reality is petty, but because coherence is a tide, miss the pull, and you wade against undertow. You're not being punished. You're being timed by a rhythm older than calendars. When the metronome ticks, you move. When it rests, you integrate. Miss enough measures, and the song rewrites itself without your solo. This is one of those measures. Breathe in time. The field has already begun laying breadcrumbs in triplicate to prove it. A sentence repeats in 2 different rooms, and then in your own mouth. An image stalks your periphery until you sketch it and realize it is the architecture for your next season. A name arrives while you stir a pot and appears again in an email's subject line. You reply, and a door unlatches you didn't know had hinges. These are not coincidences, they are alignment beacons. Treat them as you would a lighthouse signals to steer by, not spectacles to admire. Here is the tangible promise. Should you keep pace, time will change texture. Hours won't drag or vanish. They'll become appropriately weighted dents when you're chiseling something that matters. Featherlight when you travel by trust. Your speech will slow half a beat and land twice as far. People you love will feel safer near you for reasons they can't articulate. Money will stop behaving like an adversary and start behaving like a current that prefers stable shores. None of this is magic. It is the economy of coherence. Systems reward what reduces entropy. Your biology will register the new contract. Sleep will become a workshop where your lineage brings you tools instead of nightmares. The gut will regain its old talent for knowing before knowing. The heart will beat a quieter drum, the kind that calls allies instead of soldiers. You may cry once without a story and notice the world become 5% brighter the next morning. That's not sentimentality. It's a lens wiped of an old fingerprint. And yes, the window closes. Not forever, not as punishment like any aperture. It narrows after the necessary light has poured through. You want that. prolonged exposure, without integration phrase, even the saints. But while it's open, the invitation is stark. Choose, not perfection, not a 10-year plan. Choose the next coherent action and treat it as a vow. Choose the breath that widens your ribs in the exact moment the email tries to shrink them. Choose the posture that rounds your shoulders around a stranger's tremble. Choose the sentence that doesn't perform, the silence that doesn't punish, the pace that doesn't apologize for being sane. You won't do this by force. You will do it by fidelity. Fidelity to the signal you promised to keep when you asked for a life you could respect. Fidelity to the self who has been sending you forward from the future postcards for years. Fidelity to the earth under your feet, which knows how to hold a mountain without clenching. The window is a favor, not a loophole. Step through it with your whole weight, and the corridor will carry you. In a breath, we'll seal this with a small public act, not for performance, but to anchor probability in the collective field. Words are switches when spoken from coherence. You'll flip one in a moment, and the circuit will recognize your voice. Then the door that's leaning will swing, and the room you've been glimpsing from the threshold will finally let you in. The corridor is open. Now you anchor it, not with effort, with a signal. Ritual is how the observer loop learns a new reflex, how probability stops being theory and starts being orbit. We're going to mark this moment in your nervous system and in the field, so the branch you're choosing becomes easier to choose again. First, posture. Sit like a mountain that remembers oceans once climbed its sides. Feet flat, crown lengthening. One palm on your sternum, one palm on your navel bridge between heart intelligence and gut knowing. Soften your eyes as if you're watching starlight reflect from a dark lake. Now the breath. We'll use a 4-phase observer breath to switch your system into coherence. 1. Arrival. Exhale gently through the mouth, as if fogging a mirror, and let the shoulders drop. 2. Descent. Inhale through the nose for a count of 4, feeling the lower hand lift first. 3. The gap hold, for a soft one, that 0.3-second quantum window where selection occurs. Don't brace. Float. 4. Release. Exhale through the nose for 6. Letting the upper hand settle last. Repeat for 3 cycles. As you do, imagine your breath writing clean geometry in space, your heart's field smoothing from static to song, your 8-foot radius clearing like sky after rain. This is coherence made visible to your tissues. This is DNA restructuring invited, not forced. Next, attention. Notice what tries to intervene: an itch, a thought, a to-do that suddenly claims emergency status. Bless it. Name it. Let it pass like a boat on a river you are not obliged to board. Naming breaks entanglement. Blessing ends the argument. Now the word. Words are switches when they carry breath behind them. Today you will seal your selection with one word, typed into the collective field and written where you can see it. The word is coherent. Why this word? Because morphic resonance copies pattern. Coherence tells your biology, your timeline, and the quantum field exactly which pattern to replicate. It's not a slogan, it's an instruction, heart and brain in phase, breath and intention braided, observer loop, aligned with authorship. When you write it, you imprint your yes in the lattice. When many of us write it, the pattern amplifies a chorus the field can't ignore. Do it now. Don't negotiate with later. Later is the loop's oldest spell. Type coherence in the comments as a vow, not a performance. Feel for the micro surge as you press send, the tiny click of probability selecting. Then handwrite coherence on a small card and place it where thresholds live. By the door, on the desk, beside the bed. Thresholds are where timelines fork. To deepen the seal, add a 3-point anchor you can deploy anywhere. Touch. Thumb to sternum, 1 signal to the heart field. Breath. 1 cycle of the 4 holds 6 pattern signal to the vagus. Phrase. Whisper. I keep the signal. Signal to the observer. Use this anchor before you answer messages, spend money, eat, or say yes. You are training selection at the micro level, so the macro can't help but follow. For the next 24 hours, practice 5 gates of attention, a walking ritual that lubricates the phase transition. 1. Gate of pace. Move 5% slower than habit. Coherence hates rushing. 2. Gate of shoulders. Lower them whenever you notice armor. The field reads posture. 3. Gate of horizon. Lift your gaze above screens every 10 minutes. Invite wider maps. C. Gate of water. Drink intentionally. Imagine each sip rinsing old methyl tags from fear, phrases. 5. Gate of speech. Leave one extra heartbeat of silence before replying. Let wisdom beat you to the sentence. Expect signals, triplicate numbers, names arriving twice then thrice. A conversation overheard that solves a problem you didn't know how to name. When they appear, nod. Recognition is consent. Consent thickens the new branch. If friction spikes an old trigger with a fresh costume, use the anchor, breathe the 4 phases, and silently trace your written word with your thumb. You are not resisting the past, you're repatterning the present. Understand, this is less about willpower than about fidelity. Fidelity to the signal you just published. Fidelity to the body that is finally exhaling after years of vigilance. Fidelity to the future self already entangled with you, tugging you across. Type the word, write the word, breathe the word. Let coherence become your signature under every small act today. As you do, the corridor brightens not only for you, but for anyone inside your radius. In a moment, we widen the lens and watch how your single, steady tone begins tuning the choir of a world ready to remember itself. What changes in you does not end in you. Coherence is not a private hobby. It's an ecological event. When you keep the signal, the quantum field doesn't merely reward you with lucky breaks. It reweighs probabilities for everyone entangled with you. Think of your life as a node on a luminous grid. Each breath you take in coherence steadies that node, and nearby nodes begin to entrain. The observer loop, once your solitary cage, becomes a shared orchestra. Your steady tempo gives the violins permission to tune, the brass to soften, the percussion to listen for silence before striking. Without announcing it, you upgrade the room. Watch how it spills. The child in the checkout line who was spiraling for reasons no adult could decode suddenly pauses to study your face. Their mirror neurons borrow your cadence, and the storm blows past. A barista on the 5th miss-pour of the hour meets your eyes, and something unclenches. Their next drink lands perfect, and the 3 people behind you inherit that ease. In a meeting primed for combat, you add 1 heartbeat of stillness before you speak. The sentence you choose becomes a bridge, and 2 opponents remember they both want the same shoreline. None of this is performance. It's morphic resonance, the field copying the pattern you stabilize, because pattern copying reduces entropy. This is how awakening scales, not through slogans, but through states. Your DNA restructuring isn't a vanity project, it's a transmission protocol. When vigilance tags loosen and your nervous system retires from its ancient war, the relief is communicable. Entire conversations stop running on adrenaline simply because your heart isn't broadcasting a siren. You will never calculate these dividends, how many arguments never happened, how many accidents swerved wide, how many quiet reconciliations you'll never hear about because your field made panic feel unreasonable and kindness feel obvious. Coherence is profoundly uneventful from the outside. That's its miracle. Human culture behaves like water near boiling, random for a while, then suddenly organized when a critical threshold is reached. That threshold is a phase transition, and beings like you are order parameters inside it. Hold a coherent state long enough, and the many align to the few, not by force, by relief. The quantum field is efficient. It prefers the path of least resistance, and a regulated nervous system lowers resistance everywhere it travels. Your steadiness is a public utility. But what about the world's fires, you ask? Isn't this too subtle, too slow? Listen, signal outlives spectacle. Outrage spikes, decays, and demands a new hit. Coherence compounds. 5 minutes of wide attention before you walk into a hospital, a courthouse, a classroom, a kitchen. These are coherence deposits into places where chaos accrues interest. Entanglement means your deposits post instantly. A nurse remembers to breathe before delivering news. A judge hears nuance that would have been drowned by haste. A teenager chooses to text instead of slam the door. A stranger lets someone merge, and a chain of small mercies ripples through a city grid. Synchronicity is the receipt. There is a discipline to this generosity. Do not evangelize, entrain. The body trusts frequency before it trusts language. Walk in with your badge hidden and your spine singing. Keep the coherence anchor at thresholds. Hand to sternum while the elevator doors close. 1-4, 1-6 breath before. Send, a half smile that tells the mammal across from you you're not a threat. When threads online heat up, add pacing instead of kerosene. I'm taking a breath before I answer. Rooms read that sentence like rain. In families, be the departure from inherited tempos, break the ancestral sprint without shaming the runners. In communities, be the pause at the microphone that lets a wiser sentence arrive. Send pulses. At the top of any hour you remember, offer the field a 60-second broadcast. 3 observer breaths, crown lengthening, feet rooting, attention widening to include your 8-foot radius, and then the block, the neighborhood, the city. Whisper, I keep the signal for us. That us matters. The lattice hears plural vows differently. Collective pronouns are bridges across private islands. This is not imaginary philanthropy. It's network hygiene. Every micro-coherent minute you circulate is a disinfectant in places where panic breeds. And when grief comes, and it will, don't seal yourself off in performance purity. Coherence is not the absence of feeling, it's feeling without drowning. Let tears fall without building an arc of story. Let anger move through your legs as a walk that returns you to breath's metronome. The field learns from how you metabolize intensity. Show it that humans can burn clean. Your liberation is a form of infrastructure. It lowers the psychic cost of being alive for people you'll never meet. It also invites allies you can meet now. Other steady nodes will find you the way radio towers find each other through fog. You'll notice it in glances that linger a beat longer, collaborations that assemble without committee, neighborhoods that hum softer when you round the corner. You are not making a brand, you are mending a net. Feel this truth land not as pressure but as permission. You do not have to carry the world, you only have to carry your signal. The world knows what to do around a stable tone, and as your tone deepens, the collective membrane thins, the corridor widens, and humanity inches toward the hinge it's been approaching for lifetimes. Keep the vow, keep the breath, keep the silent rhythm that turns riots into circles and strangers into kin. In a breath, we'll step closer out of theory and into the chamber of sensation, so your body can memorize the music it's been playing all along. Stay with the body now, the laboratory and the cathedral. Let the grand words dim to a hush behind your ribs so sensation can speak in first person. Loosen your jaw, unclench behind the eyes. Slide your shoulder blades a breath wider, as if you're making room for wings you can't quite see yet. Feel gravity remember you. Feet like stones warming in sunlight. Toes spread inside your shoes as if finding shoreline. Knees soften. Pelvis drops a centimeter, enough for the spine to stop pretending it's a spear and become what it truly is, a flute. Inhale through the nose for 4. Let the lower belly rise first, then the sides of the ribs, then the back pockets of the lungs, as though you're filling a lantern from the bottom up. Float for a quiet beat in the gap. Exhale for 6, and hear the invisible note your body sings when breath strokes string. There, do you sense it? A silk thread current skimming the skin, microwaves climbing the forearms like carbonated light. That is coherence arriving in sensation. Your heart's field smooths from static to tide, and the fascial web, your inner star map, begins to unkink. Fascia loves rhythm. It drinks it. When you breathe like this, the web stops bracing for impact and starts transmitting again. Bring one palm to the sternum, one to the navel. Feel the top hand float on a calm sea, while the lower hand rides the deeper swell. You are tuning the conversation between heart and gut, the two radios your ancestors trusted long before thought learned to shout. Imagine a dim room inside the chest. With each exhale, a caretaker moves through and pulls dust cloths off old instruments. The drum of courage, the bell of grief, the harp of joy. Sound returns to the house. Scan like a lighthouse slow, steady circles. Brow, throat, chest, solar plexus, belly, hips, thighs, calves, soles. Wherever sensation says, here, linger. The observer loop trains with attention like this. You notice without fixing, name without narrating, breathe without bargaining. A knot in the throat, call it a gate, not a problem. Warm the gate with an exhale and watch it. Remember, it's a door. Place your awareness at the base of the skull, where thought pours into the river of spine. With the next inhale, imagine that river widening. On the exhale, let dense stories drift to the bank like leaves that no longer need your hands. Feel for the tiny click when the mind stops pulling and begins floating. That click is the mechanical sound of allowing. Now let imagery thicken. Picture the quantum field not as abstraction, but as a night ocean surrounding you, ink black, star-dusted, perfectly still until you move. Your breath is an oar. Each coherent stroke sends concentric rings across that surface. Watch how those rings meet other rings, entanglement in action, amplifying some, cancelling others, until a pattern forms that only you could have composed. This is synchronicity felt rather than analyzed. The way the air in the room brightens half a shade when you remember you're not late for your own life. Drop awareness into the belly, 3 finger widths below the navel, center of gravity, and making. Imagine a small ember there, the color of sunrise seen through amber glass. With every exhale, cup it. With every inhale, feed it. Not a blaze, an abiding hearth. From this hearth, warmth climbs the spine in soft spirals, brushing the edges of vertebrae like hands along a banister. Where it meets tension, it waits. Where it meets space, it climbs. Let it reach the heart and feel the delicate, almost ticklish bloom as the pericardium stops wearing armor and starts wearing air. Notice the periphery, too, the kingdom of fingertips and lips. Electric pollen gathers there when awakening passes from theory to tissue. Tiny fizzing constellations spark and fade. You are not imagining it. The body has a language of stars, and tonight it is speaking fluently. If emotion rides in on this electricity, give it architecture. Let tears be rain watering a garden you forgot to plant. Let anger be thunder rolling heat out of bone. Let joy be the shimmering of a veil you didn't know you'd been living behind. Everything gets to move, nothing gets to drive. Place attention on the sacrum, the keystone at your lower back. See it as a door latch between past and possible. Inhale and feel the latch lift. Float in the gap, quarter second of holy indecision. Then exhale and sense the door ease inward on oiled hinges. That's a body-level phase transition. Not spectacle, but an unmistakable tilt from bracing to bearing. Stay until you can tell the difference. Now widen. Feel the 8-foot radius around you, a soft sphere humming at the pitch of safe to be. Your skin is not the edge of you, it is simply the seam. The sphere breathes with you, subtle, tidal. As it expands, check for the old habit of apologizing for how much space you take. Catch it, smile into it. Let your field keep its natural size. The world knows what to do around a stable shoreline. Whisper, barely audible. I keep the signal. Hear the sentence vibrate against your thumb at the sternum. That's morphic resonance at the smallest scale. Pattern teaching tissue teaching pattern. This is DNA restructuring as felt sense. A gentling of the hum behind the heart, a lift in the palate, a cool clarity at the bridge of the nose, as if the air itself just got cleaner. Stay a few breaths longer than is comfortable. Comfort was calibrated by the loop. Sufficiency is calibrated by the field. When you step from this moment, carry one souvenir, the exact texture of ease in your ribs when you remember you are not late. Memorize it. It's the doorway you'll need when pressure rises, because it will. And when it does, you'll feel the next layer of heat gather and know, this isn't regression, it's ignition. The hinge is near. The genome is listening. The transition is about to speak in your bones. Here comes the pressure, clean, insistent, like the hush before thunder. Don't confuse it with panic. Panic contracts. This pressure expands, pushing from the inside, as if your bones were lantern frames, and the light finally found the switch. The body reads it first. A subtle heat at the sternum, a low hum behind the navel, a prickle along the scalp where futures braid into hair. You are not breaking. You are boiling 99 degrees, giving way to the 1 degree that changes the name of water. Phase transition has signatures. Air feels denser, as if rooms have grown gravity. Colors step forward half a shade. Random noise organizes into pattern. The kettle clicks the instant you think of tea. A song from childhood arrives at the precise memory it unlocks. Three strangers say the same word you wrote on your card: coherence, as if the world were practicing your language. This is not sentiment. It's synchronicity at work, interference patterns cleaning themselves until an image appears. The quantum field loves order. You're providing a template. Inside, the genome listens for sustained states. Hours and days of widened breath have altered the microclimate around your code, less static, more signal. Picture chromatin fibers loosening where fear once cinched them tight, transcription gates receiving a gentler knock, repair enzymes finding their way like lantern bearers in a library where the aisles have finally been cleared. DNA restructuring is not fireworks, it's carpentry, precise, quiet, faithful. Old phrases unhook, new sentences thread. The body becomes a better instrument for the music you've been hearing in dreams. Pressure distills choice. You'll notice invitations from the old timeline arrive with excellent timing: yesterday's urgency, last year's flattery, the exact scarcity that used to make your ribcage smaller. Smile when they appear. They are not traps. They are titrations, drops of the previous solvent testing whether the new crystal will hold. It will. How do you know? Because your breath no longer rushes to apologize. Because your shoulders remember down. Because silence fits in your mouth without tasting like defeat. This is the moment the observer loop tries one last costume: practicality. It will whisper that you should postpone wonder until after the spreadsheet, postpone coherence until after the meeting, postpone the corridor until after things calm down. Recognize the script. The loop bargains with later because it cannot survive now. Answer with a single cycle of the four-phase breath. Arrive, descend, gap, release, and watch time. Obey your pacing. In that 0.3-second gap, selection occurs. You feel it as a soft click where the mind used to lunge. Timeline shift is not teleportation, it's re-indexing. Scenes remain, but their meanings reassign. The street you dreaded becomes neutral. The room that drained you turns porous. A name that once pulsed goes flat. Another glows when it appears on your screen, and your hands move without debate. People will say, "You've changed." You haven't, you've tuned. Morphic resonance catches the new pitch and begins copying it across your calendar. Meetings move, flights reroute, delays protect you instead of punishing you. The world isn't conspiring for or against you, it's calibrating to you. Expect critical phenomena, the oddities physicists notice when matter nears a phase change. Critical opalescence. Clarity turns milky for a moment as two realities overlap. You'll feel it when an old story and a new one both claim the same hour. Don't force, fuse. Let the hour become a threshold, not a contest. Critical slowing down. Systems hesitate as they choose a new order. You'll see it when a decision resists resolution. Don't pry it open. Hold coherence around it like warm hands around frost. The choice will melt in the direction of least inner contradiction. In this corridor, entanglement blooms. Your future self doesn't feel far. It feels braided, two strands of one rope, pulling in both directions at once. Ask for a token and you'll receive one. A sentence in someone else's voice that you recognize as yours. A photograph that looks like a memory from a life you haven't lived yet. A calm that arrives before the news, not after. Collect these without drama. They're not trophies. They're orientation points on a new map. If grief or heat swells, meet it with architecture. Stand, feet wide enough for honesty. One hand to sternum, one to navel. Exhale like you're clearing a mirror. Inhale 4, float 1, exhale 6. Whisper, I keep the signal. This is not self-soothing. It's engineering, stabilizing the order parameter. You, so the lattice, your life, can reorganize without cracking. Feel how the body thanks you. Jaw unclamps. Gut speaks in clean syllables. Heart taps a tempo you could walk a city to, and then the telltale click. The pressure doesn't vanish. It clarifies, like a storm deciding to rain somewhere else, like a room turning its lights on all at once. You realize nothing mystical happened to you, you happened to the field. You held a frequency long enough for matter to agree. From this altitude, the promise becomes simple. Keep fidelity, and the road will surface under your feet as you step. In the next movement, we name the road and tie your vow to the world's vow. Your shift is not a private weather system, it is climate. The mission waits at the threshold, already listening for your footsteps. Here is the road you felt surfacing, service through signal, not a slogan, an operating system. You don't need a new identity or a grand announcement. You need a daily covenant with coherence that lets the world borrow your steadiness. Keep the three-point anchor: close, touch, breath, phrase, and apply it where timelines fork, doorways, screens, thresholds, names. The mission is exquisitely simple. Regulate your field so that reality has a stable reference. Every time you do, the lattice around you discovers an easier way to arrange itself. You will measure success differently now, not by applause, but by atmospheres. Rooms that used to bristle will begin to soften when you cross their borders. Conversations will choose repair over performance because you paced them with a single breath. The body will continue its careful carpentry DNA, restructuring as a daily craft, while synchronicity becomes housekeeping, clearing clutter without fanfare. This is how civilizations turn, in the quiet revolutions of nervous systems that refuse to broadcast panic. Carry the badge lightly. Custodian of Coherence means you are trustworthy with power because you keep your palms open. Use it to midwife futures, not to manage people. When asked what you're doing, let your answer be a state before it is a sentence. Stand like weather that makes growth inevitable. Speak like water shaping stone. Move like a tide that remembers every moon. Establish a cadence that outlives mood. Dawn 3 observer breaths, and the word you've chosen written once by hand. Noon 1 minute of field, wide attention for us. Night gratitude for 3 moments. You noticed the loop try to reclaim you, and you chose the gap instead. Call these the hours of coherence. They are bells the field can set its watch by. On harder days, shorten nothing, shrink the drama, not the ritual. You will not travel alone. Other steady nodes will locate you through fog, neighbors whose spines sing the same note, strangers who speak in silences you recognize. This is entanglement doing what it does best. Gathering a choir, meet them without mystique. Share bread, share breath, share work. Coherence compounds fastest in ordinary rooms. If grief flares as the old timeline dissolves, bow to it. You are not abandoning who you've been, you are graduating them. Place a hand over the sternum and tell your former selves, "Thank you for carrying me to this hinge." Then step. The corridor holds. Remember, urgency here is fidelity, not frenzy. Keep the vow in small places, and the large will keep itself. Let money become current, time become texture, love become gravity. Let your presence be instruction, morphic resonance teaching by relief. You are not here to convince, you are here to pattern. Now take 1 breath for you and 1 for the world. Whisper, "I keep the signal for us." Feel the sphere around you hum at the pitch of safe to be. That hum is infrastructure for a civilization crossing its own phase, transition, a species moving from reflex to authorship, from noise to song. Walk forward with the quiet authority of someone who has learned to select reality in the 0.3-second gap. Keep the badge warm, keep the breath wide, keep the word where thresholds live. And remember, as you step into the work already listening for your footsteps, when your quantum frequency activates, you instantly unlock a higher field of consciousness. Watch now.